everybody. Today I'm going to be comparing the Northern and the Italian Renaissances. Both of these movements helped shape the world of art as we know it, but they did it in very different ways. By exploring their historical roots, their artistic techniques, and their cultural priorities, we can better understand how geography and ideology shape these two incredible artistic traditions. Alright, we're going to start with the Northern Renaissance. It was developed in regions like Flanders, Germany, and the Netherlands. Artists here like to focus on religious themes, domestic interiors, and symbolism. Unlike the Italian counterparts, the Northern artists didn't look to ancient Greece and Rome for inspiration, but instead poured detail and spiritual depth into everyday life. Oil painting was their major innovation. It allowed for unmatched precision, layering, and luminosity. Artists like Jan van Eyck and Albrecht Dürer used this technique to render textures like fur, glass, and metal with incredible realism. Their works often included Christian symbols hidden in ordinary objects, making every scene rich with meaning. Okay, now moving on to the Italian Renaissance. The Italian Renaissance began in Florence and was deeply influenced by the rediscovery of classical antiquity. Italian artists emphasized proportion, anatomy, and linear perspective, techniques that brought new depth and realism to their work. Unlike the symbolic approach of the North, Italian artists were interested in idealized beauty and the human form. They often depicted mythological subjects and secular themes alongside traditional religious narratives. Michelangelo's sculptures, Leonardo's scientific drawings, and Raphael's balanced compositions all reflect the Renaissance ideals of harmony, order, and intellectual pursuit. Now, to compare them as movements. While both the Renaissances valued human creativity and innovation, they differed in focus and execution. The Italian Renaissance embraced classic ideals, symmetry, and anatomical perfection. In contrast, the Northern Renaissance centered on religious devotion, domestic detail, and intense realism. Italian artists often worked on large-scale frescoes and public commissions, while Northern artists created intimate oil panels meant for private worship. Both of these styles revolutionized art, but they reflect two very different worldviews, one rooted in ancient philosophy and the other rooted in spiritual reflection. Now to compare specific pieces. On the left here, under the Northern Renaissance, we have Jan van Eyck's Arnolfini portrait, and on the right we have Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper. Van Eyck used oil paint to achieve extraordinary detail, from the texture of the rug to the reflection in the mirror. This painting is filled with subtle Christian symbols like the single-lit candle, possibly representing the presence of God. And in contrast, Leonardo's Last Supper is all about structure and movement. He arranges Christ and the apostles in a dramatic, balanced composition, using perspective to draw our eyes directly to the center where Christ is. One of these pieces is quiet and symbolic, and the other is theatrical and monumental. Both of them are masterpieces in their own right, though. To conclude, the Northern and the Italian Renaissances were two distinct but very equally powerful expressions of the human spirit. They differed in materials, technique, subject matter, and cultural outlook, but both transformed the way we see art. Whether it was through the divine detail of Van Eyck or the idealized beauty of Michelangelo, each movement expanded the possibilities of visual storytelling. Studying them side by side shows us how art can reflect both our inner worlds and our shared history. And then these are my sources, and yeah, thanks for watching.